What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran and I help people using a spiritual perspective. And today I wanted to talk about twin flames, specifically twin flame obsession. Now, I'm going to break this down into probably 2 or 3 parts. The first part that I'm going to break it down into is talking about what twin flame obsession is. The second part I'm going to be talking about is why we would do something like that. And the third thing that I would be talking about is how to essentially break the chain of obsession. Okay, so we're breaking it into 3 parts roughly, right? So let's start with point number 1. Seems like a good place to start, right? So let's talk about what twin flame obsession actually is. Okay, so essentially what happens, we find somebody that we then attach a label to. Now we attach this label, twin flame, for good reason, or for any other reason than there's nothing else that could possibly explain quite a deep connection to somebody. Now the problem begins the moment that we attach the label onto the connection. Otherwise, we've just had a connection. So far, it's just, I feel very strongly about this person, they might feel very strongly about me, something about this is changing some aspect of my life currently, and it seems very important somehow. It seems like a marker in my life. And that's a normal occurrence that happens to quite a few people, and it's probably happened to large groups of people throughout history in the past. What happens though is we attach a label, right? And so twin flame obsession essentially becomes the obsession with the label. Now I know a lot of you might not think about it like that, but let's focus in here, right? Now obviously when we think about twin flame obsession, we're talking about maybe being obsessed with the person, the individual in question, right? Being so enamored with somebody that you find yourself thinking about them all the time, planning your day and your emotions around them, that before you know it, you've become codependent on their existence fulfilling you in some way. And that is, of course, a big problem. It's not only a big problem because they might not be your twin flame, but because you're not able to live your life in a healthy, normal sort of way in which you are maybe the center of self-care, rather than relying on other people's versions of their life to make you feel better, right? So we start with ourselves essentially, but we're not able to do that when we become obsessed with somebody else. So twin flame obsession is essentially becoming obsessed with the label, because without the label, without the twin flame word, we're essentially just dealing with a connection, which is a lot easier to handle. It's a lot easier to make sense out of. If the label didn't exist, I would argue, strongly argue, that the benefits would far outweigh the negatives. Now there might be some negatives, of course, but I would argue for certain that we would be less stressed and we would not obsess as much if the label did not exist. So while we may look at the individual that we believe to be our twin flame as, of course, the twin flame, what we're doing is we're becoming obsessed with the label. Because otherwise, we would just see the person for who they are. We would recognize the connection, we would understand that there's something intuitively going on between us, but we wouldn't pigeonhole it. We wouldn't put it into a box in which we are now going to assume that all of these qualifications are now applying to us. And let's talk about some of those qualifications, right? Let's talk about what it means to be a twin flame. Well, we've got some back and forth. We've got some separation energies going on. We've got both partners need to be awake, fulfill some type of spiritual mission. We've got some type of difference between the two. Maybe it's a race thing, maybe it's a sex thing, maybe it's a background, a cultural background, an age thing, a family thing. There's always some sort of obstacle in order to show the others, the collective, what true love looks like. That a younger man can be in a relationship with an older woman, or an older woman can be in a relationship with a younger man, and vice versa, man, woman, all sorts of stuff, right? Same sex, right, relationships, just to show that love exists as love, right? So you have this overarching theme of love, and and of course you have these back and forth energies as well, like I've already touched upon, and sort of synchronicities of you two meeting, right? So lots of little details. I don't want to go into every single one of them for the sake of length, but I think you're starting to get the picture that I'm broad strokes painting here for you. So thinking about all of that, and the overarching twin flames are meant to be together, then what happens is you become obsessed with the narrative. The narrative of being with your twin flame becomes the obsession. And the person is the caricature. It is the actor. It is the object of your desire, of course, but it is the label that puts the stress on this particular relationship, this particular person. Otherwise, let's assume that your person's name is David for the women and, I don't know, for the gay men, and Samantha for the straight men. Okay, so let's just say David and Samantha, pretty common names, I think, pretty white people sounding names. Let's just say those two are, one's in love with David, one's in love with Samantha, and they're just David and Samantha before that. There's a strong connection to them. You feel some type of energy, but there may be a lot of red flags and maybe some things you're not too sure of, and you would probably go a little bit more patient. What happens, though, when you slap the label on there is you begin to understand through the label that these people should be in your life, that there's a lot going on, and that it's justified. Your actions, your behaviors are justified. So your obsession becomes justified because it becomes a consequence or an effect of being in a twin flame relationship. And that becomes a problem. So this kind of moves into my second point. Why do we get obsessed? Why do we get obsessed with twin flames? Or why do we even get obsessed with love, right? Why is it that love is such an important aspect of the human condition? Because it's a hugely important part of our well-being, our happiness, our sense of worth. And yet at the same time, we seem to have a very romantic view of love. A very romantic view of love. You can thank Hollywood for a lot of that. Movies, right? TV shows. You can even thank a lot of those cheap romance novels you could pick up at the store. You can thank Plato. I believe it was Plato. It might have been Socrates, but one of those two came up with that whole man-woman used to be one androgynous being, and then the gods got mad at them for doing some shit, right? As gods tend to do, and split them in the middle, so they became male and female energies, essentially, so that the one would have to go and traverse the earth to find the other. Okay, so it talks about from a very early stage of civilization, not the earliest, of course, but a hallmark of human civilization, the Greek philosophies, Greek civilizations of ancient times. That idea is true love has been around for a long time, so it's affected our culture. Right? And twin flames is the idea of the ultimate love. So as a culture, we are obsessed with love. Obsessed. We want to find it everywhere. We look for it everywhere. And it doesn't just become about love for life, love for self, love for others, love for strangers, love for animals. It specifically becomes about romantic love. About finding somebody who can make you happy, who can share a world with you, who can bring your life excitement, who can stop things from being the way that they are, and give you a new beginning. And when we meet an individual who we believe to be our twin flame, or who we believe to be someone important to us because we feel the connection, we feel the connection before we discover the label, often, many times, so because of that, we want that person to complete something, right? And a lot of the times, the twin flame, regardless if they're actually your twin flame or not, will catalyze something within you. Maybe an element of self-care or something that needs to be done. But the obsession with the twin flame, the obsession with love, becomes this goal, this driving force. So twin flame obsession is this great need to be together, this great need to complete each other, to now live together as one. Right? And it's due to the label. Why we do that is because love is such an important thing to us. You would not have a twin flame or go through any traumatic experiences in love if the desire within you was not so great to experience it. And this is not me demonizing your desires to be in a committed relationship, to be with somebody, the man or woman you deserve. This video is not to say that at all. I'm not so jaded that I would ever even come close to suggesting that. However, I have been through a lot, and as somebody who has deeply cared about love pretty much all of his life, I have some experience with how important it is to us. The first memory I have of being in love or having a crush or some type of romantic feelings was in, man, I don't know the grade. It must have been first, second, third. I don't know what the grade. In Canada, I was in Canada. I was 9 years old, being an easier way of saying it. And I remember the girl's name. Her name was Carly. And I used to have a crush on her, and she didn't pay attention to me. So even from the first, there was already that. From the first time I had a crush on a girl, there was already the element of they don't want me. Okay, so we're already talking about childhood wounds or stories, right? We're already talking about a lack kind of feeling at the age of 9, right? Because I did not have a, let's say, happy childhood. So already was dealing with that stuff. And I remember one specific memory. I was watching her from the bushes. I was 9 years old. Please cut me some slack. I was watching her from the bushes, and I didn't do anything weird. Okay, I was just watching her, which is already weird enough. But I was a kid, like I said, and I was just in love with her. I was just, I just put her on this pedestal. A 9-year-old boy putting another 9 or 10-year-old girl on a pedestal. It's strange, right? Obviously, at that age, it's not sexual or anything like that. But the feelings, there was some type of, I had a crush, some kind of pretty, this girl was pretty, but she didn't pay attention to me in the slightest, right? And that would complete a large theme in my life for many times. And there'd be times where that didn't happen, but I would be the most attracted to the person that didn't pay attention to me. So, bringing that back to twin flames, when I met this person that I thought was my twin flame, this is not the person that I currently have in my life. This is a very different person. For those of you who are wondering, I have already met my twin flame. It's a real relationship. It's existed pretty much unencumbered now for a while. But that's not the point of this video. The point is that at one point when I did believe that there was other woman was my twin flame, I was obsessed. I was obsessed because she didn't pay attention to me. She catalyzed all of the feelings that could directly be traced back to that girl, back to Carly, back to the first or second grade there, back to when I was 9, a kid in Toronto watching from the bushes. That's how I felt, again, with this person. Twin flames bring up this catalyzing energy. And unfortunately, what happens is that we feel that the obsession is a sign that the twin flame is real, that this is not a catalyst, that this is not a false twin, this is not any other word that you want to call it, that this person is our love. And we become obsessed. We become obsessed with them because we have some type of childhood wound. And that's what they're playing out for us. Now, I am firmly of the school of belief that a twin flame is not supposed to be a toxic person in your life. I'm a firm belief of that. You can disagree with me, and you can keep holding on to the images that you have in your head, but it would be inauthentic and downright morally inept if I didn't share with you how debilitating it is to believe that every single person that claims that they're in a twin flame relationship is not just in something that is preparing them for a real one, right? Not everybody. It's just like everybody thinks they can go to Hollywood and become a famous actor. But that doesn't happen to everybody. And if it did happen to everybody, certainly the world would be less varied, and it wouldn't be that important that anybody was famous to begin with. So we have to manage our expectations, but we're not doing that because the twin flame label is so important. We want love to be so important. It is important to us. We want to be in a relationship. But a lot of the time with people that are going through this type of journey, our parents or our caregivers, guardians, instilled within us beliefs and emotions and feelings that have been hijacked by a little voice in our head. Oftentimes it's not ours. And these emotions and these feelings, and they create thoughts, and they create beliefs, and they create more assumptions about ourselves. And by the time we're in our 20s or 30s or whatever, we're an adult, we don't know necessarily how messed up we really are. And when we meet somebody that catalyzes us and causes us to essentially explode with feelings, we automatically assume that this is the object that we've always been looking for, rather than being somebody who's meant to explode within you all of this stuff, who's meant to catalyze your transformation. That person that I was talking about, let's say the false twin, for lack of a better word, that person was never able to give me anything. It had the hallmarks of a twin flame relationship without any of the 3D relationship, the communication, without any, true commitment, without any awakening on her part. There was always something off, right? There was always something blocking it. Almost as if the universe was actually protecting me from being in that relationship. And despite my struggles and getting over it and how obsessed I was, it just seemed like the farther that she pushed away from me, the more I chased her, the more that I was obsessed, the more that I thought about her, right? And that was it led me to do really silly actions, okay? And I regret them, of course, and I'm not necessarily happy that I did them. But at the same time, that catalyzed me into understanding deeper parts of myself and allowed me to go forward in my life with hobbies and passions and avenues and directions and leaps of faith that I never would have taken if I hadn't been so fundamentally and spiritually shaken up on all levels, emotional and spiritual, right? Even physical to some degree as well. So that relationship proved to me how obsessed I was with love. And so often twin flame relationships, or the relationships that mirror twin flame relationships, will bring that into our life, right? So we've got the what and we've got the why, right? But now let's talk about how. How do we get out of that energy? How do we get out of feeling so obsessed? How do we just remove the codependent feeling? All right? And you'll notice that all twin flame coaches, they claim that they are coaching a twin flame, but they are essentially telling you to focus on the present moment, right? We hear this all the time. It's Eckhart Tolle, the power of now, and every variation of that is essentially the same idea. You're in the moment, and so when you're in the moment, you can't care about how attached or not detached you are, or how much you love this person, or how much feelings you have, or what you want to do. When you're in the now, you're existing separate from all that stuff, right? And that's a really nice, pithy way of looking at it, and it's certainly true to many degrees. However, it would behoove you to go deeper than just in the now, just thinking about it like, oh, well, I'm in the now, because technically you're always in the now. Just because you might be distracted doesn't mean that you're not presently experiencing something, right? And we're taking a deeper level of what you are, right? I'm Kieran, but I have a soul. And let's say that soul has a name. Well, that soul, that name that it has, is always there. Kieran I'm sometimes Kieran, but I'm always that thing, right? So I might be very attached to being Kieran at some point, and I'm still going to be the soul. I'm still going to be that other energy, that other thing. So in essentially the same way, we're always in the now moment because of that, right? We're having a spiritual experience, right? And we're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So we're experiencing things in vastly different ways from other groups of people on the planet. And so it adds a new level, a new perspective. So living in the moment is certainly a very helpful thing to do, but it's almost very unhelpful to focus on, because any natural time in life where you're in the moment, it's not something you forced yourself to get into. It's you were doing something mundane, or you were really enjoying yourself, or you were having a really great conversation. It's stuff that you don't plan on doing. You're just in the moment. So instead of necessarily focusing on you being in the moment, which is a result of something else anyway, let's focus in on practical, maybe wise actions or attitudes or perspectives that may actually bring you out of obsession. Okay? So I would say that if you're going to end up in the now moment anyway, the best thing you can do to get out of this whole trap of being obsessed with the individual is bringing a sense of joy into your life, bringing a sense of detachment, bringing a sense of apathy. That sounds a bit counterintuitive, right? Apathy. You're saying that I should be less alive? No, but I am saying that you should care less. You should find ways to be with yourself, right? Find ways to be with your emotions, to be with your thoughts, to be with your own energy, right? Being obsessed over an individual or a twin flame is no different than being obsessed over a drug or a food or an idea. It's no different. When you feel a pull towards something that you know is not helping you in the long run or medium run and will only give you a short-term satisfaction, let's say checking up on their social media profile, then you have to sit with that feeling. You're not supposed to judge it. You're not supposed to talk bad about yourself or wish that it wasn't there. You're supposed to be with it. You're supposed to allow it to be in, to bring something into your life. You're bringing something in, right? Now, whether or not you're bringing silence or joy or humor or laughter, right? Or even sadness or grief, you're bringing something in. It doesn't matter how positive or how negative it is. You're allowing something to exist. And yes, that's going to be in the present moment. That's where any action takes place. But rather than focus on being in the present, we want to focus on being with yourself, because that's what everything is trying to teach you. And it's the only way you would ever end up with the right person anyway. The more you know about yourself, the more you know about what you like and about what you don't like. And the more that you know that, the more that somebody else who knows that about themselves will be able to pinpoint you. And so I never want to preach twin flame stuff to other people, because it is such a varied, misunderstood, and often misguided subject that a lot of people are very, very attached to. And to have any opinion that suggests that maybe, just maybe, the person that you're with, all these red flags, these codependent, toxic kind of situations going on, maybe that person isn't your twin, you get such a negative feedback loop that it makes you look like an asshole. So I try not to talk about it too much. But to be honest with you, I think it's important to talk about. It's important to challenge a status quo in which everybody is allowed to just believe that everything is going to be fine, when you know what? It's not going to be fine. You're already obsessed about something. If you're watching this video, you're obsessed about a specific individual. And let me tell you something, that's not healthy. It's not healthy because it's not healthy just because, you're distracting yourself or something like that, or because they're particularly bad, or because you're an idiot. It's unhealthy because every step that you take towards trying to live through someone else is a step that you're taking away from discovering what it is that you're doing here. So if you're looking to understand how to get out of the obsessive energy, there's a few things. One, you have to give it time, right? You can't just expect that tomorrow you'll be fine. That's not going to happen. You have to find some type of balance. We have to allow things to come into our life rather than holding on to what isn't there. 3, we can definitely argue that we're spending time in the present, but it's a consequence anyway. 4, we want to detach. We want to stop giving a shit, right? Which is, again, we're getting to a place where we're allowing some apathy back into our lives. It's not a negative thing, really. And 5 is to do something. Do something with your obsession. I don't mean something unhealthy. I don't mean go stalk them at work, but do something with your feelings. Write a poem, go on a vacation, go do something spiritual, go take up meditation, take up yoga, take up boxing, take up hot yoga, take up naked yoga, take up anything, take up something. Do something real with your energy, with your actions, with your sadness, with your grief. Do something you can see in the physical reality, that you can see the effects of, whether or not it's a short-term effect, like creating a poem. Maybe that only takes 15 minutes and boom, there's your poem. Or taking up yoga, which may, 2 or 3 months later, you may see the results, the bone health increase. You may feel more energetic, right? Whether or not it's short-term or long-term and medium-term, do something real. All of these will pull you out of your obsession energy. And then, only then, will you be able to decide whether or not this person is actually your twin flame and somebody that you have a good chance of ending up with in the future, or if that you were just involved with a catalyst sort of person, somebody who was there to teach you an important lesson. And by focusing on yourself, you would have taught yourself that lesson. You would have learned it. And then they won't be that important anymore. So in one of these next videos coming up, I'm going to be talking about why to avoid twin flame coaches. And a lot of what I've touched upon here today is going to illuminate some of that, right? And there's a reason why I don't talk about twin flames as much. There's a reason why I try not to tell you what to believe. And while this is a video that I hope was able to help, I don't necessarily want you guys to take my word as gospel. But when it comes to twin flame obsession, I think that these sort of 3 ideas that I've been sharing with you here today is able to alleviate some of the pressure. It's probably not going to take all of the pressure away, but just to get rid of some of those feelings where you think, you know what, it's okay to feel this way, this is why I feel this way, and this is how I can maybe get out of this feeling, okay? Because that's all I've been doing, presenting it to you today in a roughly 25-minute video, okay? So I hope that this video was helpful. Please leave your feedback, negative or positive, of course. I'm happy to share with it. But this is just something that I hope was able to illuminate some light. Okay, bye guys.